Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for tuning in today. I am really honored to present you with my special guest, Lisa Moran of Awaken Divine Truth. She is an intuitive and energy alchemist with a private practice in Reiki and energy healing. And something really amazing about Lisa, which I love about your work, is just like how many modalities you integrate. And so I just want to like welcome you and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me to do this.
Yeah, and so I'll just start with that because that is like one of the most like impressive things that I've noticed about your work. And you have like you have trained in like so many different areas. Like you work in as an energy alchemist, like you've done like hypnosis, Sedona Method, um, Kabbalah, like you're in human design. So that's amazing. Like, do you want to say a little bit about like how you bring all of this together and like how are you doing it all?
A lot of unfree time. Well, I just want to learn everything and I just follow all these breadcrumbs to where I'm leaded next, right? By intuitively. And I learn everything. And then when I meet with a client, I have this great toolbox that, I am able to present to whoever's there with whatever challenge or whatever they're going through, whatever they're working on. And it's so personally, rewarding to be able to help somebody in that way and have so many like this little reference toolbox that I have that I can learn all these different things, present them to people because, everybody learns in a different way or everybody, resonates with something different. And, some people might not resonate with one particular practice, but you introduce something else and then they're like, it clicks. And so that's really how this started. And I didn't really seek out to do this. I feel like I've just been guided and I've just been following. And so it's, even before when we were planning for this and we were going over everything, I was like, oh, that's a lot. Right? So it's a lot, but my own journey has led me to most of the modalities that I offer or I've learned or I'm able to guide people through. And it's so rewarding for the dialogue when we meet.
Exactly. And I feel that so we're both intuitives and I feel that like that's part of how we got into this particular conversation. So I'll just let everyone else know it was just a lot of cool synchronicities at once because if you guys know, I was working on a book review of Joe Dispenza's work. And, I've known Lisa for a while now through social media, and we've been talking. And I got to talking to her about Joe Dispenza, and she just happened to be doing a lot of his workshops at the same time. So there was just a whole bunch of synchronicities at once. And we thought, yeah, we have to have this conversation. So maybe it would be really cool to like start into that as well, because I would love to hear, and I know a lot of my audience is also familiar with Joe Dispenza's work, really interested in his approach. What were these workshops like for you? Like, did he go beyond what he does in the book? Like, do you want to talk about any like major insights you had from that experience and maybe like how you've integrated that with your own work?
Yeah. So of
Mm.
course, I was introduced to Joe Dispenza's work a while ago. Um, and Becoming Supernatural, I think, was the first book that I read of Joe Dispenza. And so I became very familiar with him. And soon after, yes, yes, that was the first book I read. And uh, at the same time, Hay House at that time, or shortly after, was offering one of his programs online, like an introduction to him as well. And so I signed up for that. And I will tell you that there is a meditation in that program. I don't know if it was the formula. I think it was called the formula. And there was this meditation where water, it was like an hour long, and water came up. I had the most profound experience during that meditation, and it changed everything for me at that time, right? And so I became super into studying him and then taking his progressive program or whatever. And because I have a lot of people who come to me with a health story. And so uh, as an intuitive, as a Reiki master, I am able to read the energy of people. A lot of times during Reiki, I feel the pain somebody's experiencing in their body. So, pain is just a signal, a message that there's something going on, right? So I just found
Mhm.
his story about his bike accident and how he was able to put his vertebrae back together. Like, his story, right?
I'm
His,
not sure I've heard that story. I don't know if he
yeah,
talked about that in Becoming
because,
Supernatural, unless I'm just totally forgetting right now, but
yeah. So, like,
he talked about this supernatural experience with his past and future self coming together.
yeah. So he had this accident, right? And so instead of getting surgery, he used his visualization to heal himself.
Amazing.
It's amazing. And so it was so funny at the time that you reached out. I was actually doing his abundance live event that he offered at the beginning of this year. And at the same time, I was reading You Are the Placebo because I had some clients with autoimmune issues coming to me, which is just their nervous system way out of whack for way too long. And so I, I just love his approach, and that You Are the Placebo really helped me to help others with, their thought process about and not attaching to the dis-ease in the body, right?
Mhm. So maybe here this is a good point to talk a little bit about, just for anyone who maybe you aren't as familiar with the details from Joe Dispenza's work. But basically, from like, I did a little quick review, but he's all about reprogramming and removing our old conditioning, like our past conditioning. As you said, like stepping out of the past self, stepping out of something you guys know I talk about here. I've talked about our own little like habit loops, our little cybernetic loops. And he gets into that type of area because um, I won't get into all the details. It's actually pretty complicated. He gets into all the biochemistry, and that's what I like about his approach too, is because it's fully coherent with all of our existing science, but it's also coherent with the science that we don't have yet, the knowledge that we don't necessarily have yet. And so he's got a really nice place of focus there. And it's all about getting beyond like our 3D body, our 3D identity, I guess. I just pulled up one little quote to share with you guys. So he's describing his own work as transcending the memory of yourself as an identity and allow something greater than yourself to take over.
Yes. Yes. You leave the past
Hmm.
self behind and step into a future self that's greater than that past self. And that abundance uh program at the time that we had that conversation was all about that too. It was, it was supposed to be wrapped around abundance, but it was really everything, right? So stepping into a new identity, embodying that identity, leaving the old behind, and those pattern loops are everything. We're programmed, right? And we just keep cycling,
Hmm.
cycling. So
And let's dig into that just a little bit more to get more specific because I know we hear this language a lot, and if you don't really dig in, you can kind of get the wrong idea in a sense because this is very specific in terms of like he has an actual theory of like how our feeling, how does it work? How our thoughts lead us to specific feelings. And then the weird thing is the way that we can actually get addicted to the chemicals that those feelings have released. And then the loop continues because then we continue to seek out that chemical composition again through recreating that experience at the chemical level. So that's really the counterintuitive part because, something horrible happens. How do you, go out and seek to have it happen again on that chemical level, right?
Yeah, you become addicted to the pattern, to the loop, to the trauma, to the wound,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
So you have to get,
fascinating.
yeah, he's all about the mind and heart coherence, right? So the thought and the feeling and and you have to create a greater thought and a greater feeling. He's big on the gratitude, right? Like on the love and the gratitude. He talks about the energy centers and so I think that that's why his explanation about breaking that loop is extremely helpful for people who are stuck in those patterns. So, like breaking the habit of being yourself.
Yeah.
When I, it's incredible that book. It really is, right? And I remember when I was reading it, I would like get so excited and like he would say something that just like I knew who I would text, my clients like, no, 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 get this book today because this is, what you need to know to get out of this loop. And of course, it's not the only way, right? But the way he explains it, and like you said, the science to back it up, because some people just want proof.
Mm-hmm. And it's not where, let me say, what was I going to say? Add to this. Yeah, going back to how he's all about like helping us create a greater thought and to move out of the fixed idea of ourself. I forgot how you said it. Move out of the habit of ourself. And I feel like it's important to note too that this isn't talking about like dissociation or having multiple personalities or, we often hear like you're gonna step into a new version of yourself. But what's really happening here is what we're finding is we're moving more into alignment with the continuity of our higher self, our higher understanding. And that's the new place of continuity, right? Like the new center of gravity rather than just like the line of all the accidents of our conditioning that we've picked up in our life experiences, which are totally random, really, on some level. And so having a greater thought and losing the habit of ourself is like we're moving into alignment with the higher self.
Yeah, he really pull. I think what he does so beautifully. Have you done any of his meditations, Jen?
I'm not sure I followed like
Yeah.
some of his, not like, maybe I did one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they're really an experience. He's very dramatic in his, the way he does it. And he picks the music purposely. Like he's
Mm,
very, he knows what he's doing. And there's so many blessing the energy centers, the present moment one, the generous present moment. I believe it's called the walking meditations. If you've ever done his walking meditations, they're really they're all designed to get you into that higher state. And he does actually too, which I love about him because I work with the energy centers. I'm all about the chakras, right? So he's into that. He incorporates that into some of his meditations, but also the breath that he uses at the beginning of his meditations is very similar to like Kundalini, like waking up that life force energy, which I, love Kundalini. So I think it's so powerful. So he's like the same. He uses all these different
yeah.
modalities, and his meditations are extremely helpful. And I would just say to anybody who's watching this, if you don't know who Joe Dispenza is, and you're cycling loops, you have these patterns, you want to live a better way, I highly recommend any one of his books, but all of his books. Or if you could do an online, if you can't go to an in-person retreat, online, it's an experience. It really is. It's an
And
experience.
it's not just that he has his own method, but as you said, it's about the scope of his integration, right? Like we're really moving on to a higher level of understanding where it's not just about having like one specific technique, but as you said, like he's been able to integrate how this works through our energy centers, the cerebrospinal fluid.
Right.
Um, and so that's what really makes it powerful because I feel like when we get in on that level, we are really moving into every new level of understanding we have moves us higher into our own self-understanding as well. So,
Absolutely. And when something takes you out of that norm, like, especially if you haven't done his meditations and you're meditating, but you feel like maybe you're not progressing, everything's a belief anyway. But if you try his, it's a little different. So you'll be able to get to that higher feeling, that higher frequency feeling, right?
mhm. And did you find yourself incorporating anything from his work into your own practice? Like whether it was a specific technique or just his overall approach, paradigm, I guess, of how this kind of transformation can occur?
Yeah, so I am big on the heart and mind coherence as well, because like we could repeat an affirmation all day long, but if there's not an emotion behind it or a feeling or an integration, it's not going to make much of a difference. It will help because repeating something positive is going to have an effect. It might just take a longer period of time until it starts to become like your reality, right? So I really, work with people to have that elevated feeling to, what you're saying, what you're thinking, and then feel into the body, to make sure there's that coherence between the two. Like if you're saying something or if you're trying to do something and you feel in the body and there's resistance, then there's no coherence. But once you're aware of it and you're able to release it or, tell a different story about it, then you start to integrate it into the cells. And then there's forward movement, there's a higher feeling, you start magnetizing better things because you're magnetizing, you're giving off a better frequency. So, of course, you're going to magnetize better things coming to you, right? Does
Hmm.
that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So let's just zoom in on that a little bit, that process of actually switching to the upward spiral, because let's assume someone has healed from a lot of trauma. They're still healing from a lot of trauma, and they've got some very specific chemical loops, and they do one of these meditations, and they do move to a higher state, and it feels amazing during the meditation. How do you make that the new loop rather than like, finding yourself back in seeking that old chemical pattern again? Is it just a matter of like, you've got to repeat this a few more times, or do we do something else how do we make that state last a little bit longer and make that the new loop?
I think what you want to do, and I believe he touches on this. It's certain thing, I've learned so much and taken so much. It's hard to pinpoint where and when, but like you almost take that picture of that feeling,
Mm,
right? You take a snapshot of that energy feeling. And the more you do this kind of work and the more you're present, he's very big on the present moment, right? Like any kind of similar person teaching this to stay in the present moment, right? When we think about the past, it causes us maybe depression. When you think about the future, it causes anxiousness. So the only true moment and where all the magic is in that present moment. And once you do this work, and maybe you're working with Joe Dispenza's meditations or his uh, programs online or reading his books, you're so more aware. So when you start to fall back into that pattern, you could pause and say, oh, I see this. Like I'm aware of this, because awareness, once you're aware of something, it takes the power away from that thing.
Yeah, awareness, this is what brings us into the present moment. This is the pause. So, yeah, I like the way you said that. And so maybe let's use this to shift a little bit into this other topic that's very much related to, well, it's a continuation of this really, and bringing ourselves into the present moment, bringing all of our awareness and energy into the present moment. We're kind of, this is where we can move so-called out of our timelines, right? And move into new timelines. And so I would love to hear like your own personal kind of like hot take on these timelines because I am definitely invested in this topic and I feel because temporality, our experience of temporality is literally that is the most mysterious aspect I think of our human life because it's not about the external world. It's about like our internal intuition and it's literally there's other stuff going on with timelines, right? That we do not know about. So what's your take on timelines and accessing this present moment and all of that?
Yeah, so I as well am very into this. I'm very into the quantum field, and which Joe Dispenza touches on a lot, the quantum field, right? And so I've been I so there's no right, the time is a man-made construct, okay? And I we have all these parallel universes. You know, we all have these different things that we can't see going on at the same time. And if you remain present and you remain in an elevated state and you practice being present, non-reactive, what happens is you start to shift into those timelines. You start to collapse into those timelines, and they're very subtle, right? They're very subtle. And let's say in my 3D, I'm in this loop, or I'm trying, like you said, like I'm elevated here, and then I go out into the world, and here comes this, and there's a delay. So here comes this old programming. I'm aware though. So I say, I see this, but you know what? I'm not subscribing to this story. I'm not subscribing to this simulation. I'm subscribing to this story, and I reaffirm where I want to be. Or I say, I choose this simulation of where I want to be. And that's, in my perspective, how you shift those timelines, the quickest way to shift those timelines. Everybody now is talking about identity, self-concept, identity shifting. And that's really, it's all the same thing, whether it's, breaking the habit of being yourself, or it's all the same. So you're just not accepting. It's Neville Goddard talks about it as well, right? Everybody's into Neville Goddard. So it's not subscribing to what's happening. It's choosing a different simulation, a different timeline. I don't subscribe to this story. This is the story that I'm subscribing to now. And
Mhm.
in that in between, you have to just have that belief. You have to have that certainty that that's where you're going and that's what's happening. And we can't see it. We can't see it, right? We have to have the belief and the certainty. And if you have that strong belief, that strong certainty, it's a good heart desire that's been put there, and it's for you and whatever, then whatever's happening here, the whole point of it is to be present, to be aware, and choose differently.
Hmm. And I feel So really recently, I've also got some really strong intuitions about this. I recorded a video the other day about this, and I feel that I would just clarify too, because another way that a lot of people can misunderstand here with this language, it's not that someone is becoming delusional and we want to reprogram like, oh no, this is not actually the color red. This is not what I'm looking at. This is not the way reality is. It's not on that level of like, we're trying to reprogram like, some basic facts about the external world. It's about
No.
your own experience and how you are showing up to a given experience. And I feel the intuition I had the other day was about accessing our higher self and getting up to speed with the knowledge or the intuition we're receiving from our highest understanding by being in the present moment, by reaching this place of stillness, silence, spaciousness, and what that can be in a non-dual state, maybe like the 0 point or whatever field and
Right.
everything. But the more we can get into that place, that's when we kind of like it becomes very easy to bring down the higher knowledge, the higher guidance. And from that, that's where we would choose like our greater self, our greater loops, I guess. And I'll just share this because this is really recent and fun, but I feel like when we're not able to like stay up to speed with that, I feel that part of ourself, we are literally in separation, right? So part of ourself is already kind of going ahead, but because we're not like really embodied in it, and I still have to like work this out, but that's when we will literally see it show up in other people. Like we will
Right.
see
It's so
it'll be
close.
like the actual life that you were going to have, and then you'll meet someone who's doing that. And it's just this weird, I don't know if this is quantum, but like it's just like, this is I call it the orbital self, right? Like we're in these larger loops of understanding as well. And if we're not like actually embodying and channeling at the speed of our own understanding, then it's actually going to show up in the external world in, whatever, an event or somebody else who's doing the thing that you were just going to do. We've heard these stories, right? Like if you don't act on your idea, then somebody else is going to use that idea.
And I don't believe that. And so, I mean, I don't subscribe to that because, and I'll tell you why. Because everybody's different and everybody has a different purpose. So it could feel the same, but it's not. Because you're going to
Hmm.
deliver it in your way, and I'm going to
Yeah,
deliver it in my way, right? And it might resonate. You have a style that resonates with your community and the people who need
absolutely.
you to explain it that way. And
Hmm.
then I have my way, right? And but yet what you said is perfect. And that's when you see it. And that's where that certainty comes in. So people like, if you're not strong in your chakra, I go back to the energy centers. So let's say your solar plex chakra is imbalanced and you're getting let's use YouTube for an example, maybe, right? You're getting 21,000 views on your video and I got three. But I'm seeing it work for you. And so I can make two choices here. I could let it take me out of that higher self and say, why isn't it happening for me? Or I could say, oh, I'm so close. I have certainty because it was just revealed to me that it's happening. It's coming into my reality. It's here.
Right. Yes. You can
You
see when
know?
they start to appear on the edges of your reality, you're
Right.
getting closer.
You're getting
I do believe
closer.
that. I do believe
Right.
that's one of the ways that we receive those kinds of signs.
But there's a choice, right? So some people who, are just that's why they say be consistent, be persistent, because it's so easy to just say, you know what, I'm just not as good, so I'm gonna
And
give up.
this is really on point. So let's dig into this because this is totally present moment right now. I was just going over this again for myself today. This is about keeping our heart open, literally, is like, because I had this moment last night where I was thinking on something and then I caught the exact place where I might slip into an older story with something and I was just like, oh my God. So it's just like it's just you want to stay really quiet, right? Like I don't want to lose this, like this like
Yeah,
dream image you have of like this is exactly where it happens. And this is exactly like the point of opening where I can like choose. I don't need to like animate that story. And it's just amazing. Like, because we can have the ideas about this, but to experientially be there and it's kind of like, oh, this is it. This is the place where I do it.
this is where I hit my ceiling, or I
Mm,
start to spiral back into default, right? What was the emotion? Do you remember? Was there emotion attached to it?
to the, I was just in a, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was just like a claircognizant type of feeling. Like it was just
Oh,
a
okay.
very like, yeah, it was a mental experience of like choosing the experience of the point of choice. And well, yeah, so I wasn't going to slip into like an old story about the way that I might there were specific kinds of old beliefs that I immediately like didn't engage. Things like, oh, this always happens, or those kinds of like stories we might tell ourselves. And it was just like it was clear, like, oh, I just don't have to engage that.
Right. I could subscribe to the news story. Like
Yeah.
that's this the same thing. And or my kids early on when I was like reading a lot of Florence Scovel Shinn, she would be like, that's none of my business. Like when you didn't want to partake or react to something that you didn't like in your 3D, she would say, it's none of my business. My kids
What's her name again? I don't know if I've heard her. Florence. What was her last name?
Scoville Shin. I actually have the book here. So she wrote there's a collection, but The Game of Life and How to Play It, Your Word is Your Wand. So there's like these little things that I've picked up from years ago that I carry around with me. Like I have one for health, like when I get out of my health confidence and the none of my business. I had taught the kids when they were younger, they like to throw that one in my face, you know. And your word is your wand. I say it all the time, you know.
Amazing. You must have an amazing library.
I yeah, I love my books.
I
I give a lot of
relate.
them away.
Mm. So yeah, so let's very much related. We already started to talk about it a little bit, but do you have your own personal theory of manifestation? Like, I feel like we're all working with some kind of understanding about how we manifest. I mean, once you're on the path and you're doing this kinds of these questions, you start to get a little sense of like how it works for you.
Right.
And I know, like, from an objective point of view, I think we're always already manifesting something. It's just about being conscious of like our style or the nuances and what we want to do, what we want to bring in. So, what's your experience of how this works?
So this is my personal belief, right? Like we all have our personal beliefs. I've
Mm.
tried everything. I've studied everything. I've tried everything. And I'm big on intention setting. I'm big on writing things down. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. Present moment, the way you write it down is fine. It could be a list. I don't like to get too crazy into it. I will teach people different methods because I think different things resonate with different people. But for me personally, I've noticed and what has manifested for me, like especially the bigger manifestations, uh always writing down, speaking it out loud, and the most important, and taking action steps, of course, nothing's just going to come out of thin air, right? But letting go, letting it go, offering it, like literally giving it to God or giving it to the universe or giving it to source. As soon as you let it go, that's when it comes.
So, what's happening in there when we let it go, right? How do you let it go? It's not just about like burning your piece of paper, right?
Right.
Or
Or
like
you
what's
can
really
do that,
happening?
and that might work for you. Like, ah, It's so funny. When I was little, I wanted three daughters. That's all I talked about. Oh, I have three daughters, right? So a week before I met my husband, I was a single mother, and I said I said out loud, and this is way before I started doing all this, but I know it tracks, right? So I said, please send me a man who will take care of me and my daughter. And a week later, on the like anniversary of my father's death, I met my husband. Like, and we've been together, like in 3 weeks, he was like, we'll be married in a year. I love kids, so,
It's so amazing.
but just like in a moment, saying something and then like not thinking about it, right?
So this was before you were like actively studying manifestation. So did you just you had the intuition of like you just kind of or you wrote it in your journal and you just decided and then
Those things I just spoke. And so I would not sleep on the speaking to whatever you believe in, or just out loud. Like, your word is your wand. It's powerful. Writing down is powerful, but speaking out loud is extremely powerful. And so now, of course, I write it down. I've, manifested a lot of big things, writing it down and then speaking it out. And then when I say let it go, is I try not to think about it, because here's the thing. When you think about it, or you try to maybe reinforce it every day, right? There's a grip to it.
yeah.
But when you put it
Hmm.
out there and you're like, okay, there's a certainty. Like, I'm offering this. Like, this is, I want this because you gave it to me. Like, I don't think any desire is random. I think it's your inner self, higher self, if it's for the good of all, of course, right? So I believe that any goal we want, or anything we want to manifest, is because it was given to us for a reason. And so there has to be some certainty in that, right? So then our job is to take the action to be that person to receive that. So then you have to let it go and just be that. And so Joe, we could go back to Joe Dispenza. He says that all the time. Be the person, who has that thing, who lives that life. What's the version of yourself that you're showing up as today, right? Who's the version of you that has that thing that you want? If you want perfect health and you're not making the right choices, you know what I mean? Like, does
Mhm.
does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It goes back to what we were just saying with being up to speed with the understanding of from our higher self and being staying in that present moment, staying embodied. Because I was actually talking about this with my friend Vida, who I did on my first podcast episode, because we were talking about manifestation and how and moving through all these versions of ourself, and then maybe you have competing versions, like maybe your healthy self works one way and then but then you're showing up a different way for we have to manifest from the direction of like our highest understanding and always being in sync with our highest expression, so to speak. And then we're not really paying attention to like versions and this or that because we're already moving in sync. We're at the same speed of our understanding. And that's maybe the place of certainty or the place of letting go, because then we're no longer holding on to like ideas about who we are or the
Right.
stories, I guess.
And to me, the version of you is that highest alignment, right? That's how I use it.
Hmm.
I'm not using it to be something other than you are, right? Like, I I'm of the belief, and this is why I created Awaken Divine Truth, that we're already all of those things. We have everything we want. We were just have all these limiting beliefs, these filters, these programs, these layers on top that we've been programmed with, either in this lifetime or another lifetimes. We signed up for this experience, and it's our job to release all of that through challenges and through life and through this journey. And as we do that, we peel off these layers until we become what we've, the truth of who we are, which is that highest version, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
that light that we were created in. So, um, absolutely, like, and I am, I've seen evidence that when we grab onto, if it doesn't happen the way in the timing that we want, is when we're gripping. But if we offer up to whatever we believe in, and that's the way I like to let go, say, take this from me, and also, if I feel like there's something I'm calling in and I'm very attached to it, I make two lists. I make an intention list and, I make a God list.
A God list.
A God list. And I'm like, I'm having trouble. Like, this is what I want, but I'm having trouble.
I need help with these.
Yeah, like I've done all I could do. This is yours now. And usually when you do that, things move real fast. So,
Amazing. Yep.
and I know God, like, is a word that certain people, I have had clients that have had issues with that word, but that's just what I resonate with, right? So, but I will interchange the divine, source, universe. But yeah, I do my list, what I can control, like how I show up today, the choices I make. And then, you know what? I can't do anything more on this. I really want this to happen, but it's not, it's making me, I'm having an emotional reaction to this. So, you know what? This is yours. You
Mm-hmm.
take this. And then
Mm-hmm.
I let it go. And then usually that day, something happens.
One thing I've noticed is that so we have different lines of intention, we have different lines of investment as we've been talking. We're manifesting certain things in one area of our life and another area. And one thing that I noticed has worked definitely is like when you switch and you move into like you let it go and then you're working in some other area that you're, manifesting your highest expression in. And then it's kind of like while you're away, spirit comes in and kind of like makes the necessary changes or updates or whatever it is. And when you weren't paying attention and you actually like moved on. So that's another way that we let go.
Right. I'll share a story with you. I, a few years ago, I'm still doing my other job that I do. And a few years ago, it was not going the way I wanted it to go. And I got sick. And because I was holding on to the story like
Hmm.
this. And I don't get sick often, but my head hurt so bad, and I don't get headaches, and I just could not even function. I literally meditated on nothing for like 8 hours. The day after that, I got a huge opportunity on that other job, and I made the most money I ever made doing that job that year.
Wow. Wow.
And all
So, yeah, what was the story then around that? Do you think the pain, the headaches were kind of just pushing you to like
let it go.
recenter and let
Yeah.
empty your head basically, literally, and so you meditated on nothing for 8 hours.
Yeah, I was sick. I mean, I couldn't do anything anyway. And yeah.
Yeah.
So, and like, I never get a headache. So I knew that was like, you have to like surrender completely. And so I just sat in my room and meditated like the whole day.
It's
And
amazing.
I'm not saying like people have to do things like that, but when your body has a physical response, you need to pay attention to the message, right?
Hmm.
So mine was, with the headache, I felt like I was
You have to empty your
disconnected.
head.
Right. And the spiritual way, I felt like too, I was disconnected from trusting a greater power than myself to take care of it. I wasn't like relying on that power. I was relying on the ego self, me controlling, right? So it wasn't working. So it was like, okay, you don't want to surrender? I'm going to make you surrender,
Mm.
you know? So that's And that's what's brought me to this work. I had a obstruction in my body. All my energy was cut off. And that's how I started doing all this. So I'm a big believer in the body keeps score and the body gives you messages. And, you know, they're very important. And once you learn how to pay attention to those messages, your life changes dramatically.
So how would you describe your own growth path on the spiritual level? Like, were you always connected with spirit and interested, or did you have more of, like you said, like, was there a big before and after moment? How did you begin on your own path of spiritual growth, basically?
So, like I said, when I was young, I would talk a lot to God. I would pray. I was very connected.
Were you
And at some,
raised, you were raised in a specific tradition?
I was, which I don't kind of relate to anything anymore, but my grandmother was very big in me praying, right? So so I was taught at a very young age to pray, not necessarily, I mean, I was raised Catholic, but my grandmother was more like would teach me prayers, right? Or teach me just to talk to God. So it was a little different. And like I said, I knew I had intuitive stuff when I was little, but I blocked it out because of trauma, mother wound, father wound, all this stuff. And then I was very in victim mode because of all this trauma. And up until about 10 years ago, and 10 years ago, it started out with blockage. Then I had a car accident, marriage falling apart, uh, work going really bad, and it, like, literally brought to my knees. And somebody gave me a book and said, "Do this." And was desperate, and I said, "Okay." And I read that book. I did the 30 things in 30 days, and a week later, randomly met somebody. I made a comment about law of attraction or something like this, and they gave me like 10 books. Um, Abraham Hicks, all this stuff. And then I just followed the breadcrumbs, took a spiritual master class, learned about Reiki, tapping, Kundalini, meditation, breath work, and then just kept following those breadcrumbs and got Reiki, healed all of my stuff through Reiki. Therapy never worked for me. And my husband had a medical emergency, so I became a Reiki practitioner to help heal him, and the rest is history.
That's
The
amazing.
Yeah, once people hear that you do Reiki, they're like, "Oh, can you do me? Can you do me?" And then that's when I started connecting to people that passed during Reiki for whoever
Mm.
with me. I started seeing past life visions, all of these things that I never really tapped into before started happening. And so I started taking courses to go deeper and working with everything that was going on.
So that's literally the example of, like, you start walking on the path and then the path appears, right?
Right.
That was going to be my other question, is how you came into finding like what your sense of your own gifts are, your own spiritual gifts. And do you feel that they do have some connection with your past life history, like your like not past life, but life, your 3D personality, your 3D life? Were there any obvious connections? I mean, you touched on it, I guess, but between gifts you had, 3D gifts, and then and then there's spiritual evolution, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like I think everybody has the capacity, that like the capability to has access to all of this. I truly believe it's whether you allow it in or not, right? So I was raised uh to be open to that. even though I had all this other stuff going on, my mother was very into mediums and connecting to something else and something beyond. My grandmother was very connected to, she lived this amazing life. So I feel like it was always there and I just wasn't allowing it in. Right. And then once I started to, it was so natural and easy. And I believe everybody has this capacity, if they would allow it. And, but I am a spiritual being having a human experience. So I'm human. So I get frustrated and I react and, but I believe that tapping into that ability and allowing it and walking that path, uh, just made it more expansive and made me more open to it. And if that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel too like we have to have a certain level of 3D stability or 3D
Oh,
structure in order to properly ground or properly like really actualize these higher gifts because I can definitely see, I know there's some moments from earlier in my life where I was definitely bringing in some higher frequency, but on the 3D, like lower chakra levels, maybe I didn't yet have the stability or integrity that I needed to really like make it stick. And so I just feel like that's a fascinating balance too, because otherwise you might ride like some amazing frequency and then, but it's not sustainable because for whatever reasons, like something is going to come in or you sabotage it or you're not recognizing it properly. So, what's going on with that? Have you noticed that in your own life?
of course. Yeah. So I'm very similar. I tend to stay in my higher chakras and I have to remember to ground. So, um, my root chakra is probably my biggest spiritual lesson that that's for me. And usually women are dominant chakras are sacral, right? So that nurturing, creative flow, uh, but my root chakra is the one that I work on the most because
Hmm.
I feel like I love it up here, but we're having a human experience in the 3D down here, right? So I do have to be mindful of grounding. So I do practices, right, to help sustain that. Wake up, put my feet on the ground. I'm grounded. Like I set the intention to stay grounded. Like I do things like that. I have an energy alchemy routine. And so it's like 2 minutes in the morning. It's like being grounded. My chakras are good to go. Like, I'm connected, but I'm grounded, getting,
Yeah.
yeah.
So actually, so grounding this brings us to this. You're doing these amazing like daily energy updates right now. And like for any of you who haven't listened, definitely follow Lisa on her Instagram, which is where Instagram and Threads, right? She's giving these daily energy readings and they are so integrated. And there's been so many occasions where I read it like later on in the day and I'm like, this is exactly what happened today. So she is definitely has some kind of gift for channeling a specific integration of you're relating like the chakras to the astrology of the day and more. So how does that work for you? How are you connecting the chakras with astrology? Like,
Right. So the energy, it's all energy, right? So whatever's going on in the cosmos is affecting our energy, and that affects our chakras, our energy centers, right? So I don't even know how I do it anymore because it just like it's like literally a 2 minute blip thing that happens and it just comes up now. So I think even if I tried to stop, I couldn't because it just comes. But I think it's so important. And like I'll get a client saying, I'm having a day, right? And I'm like, did you look at your email? Because this is going on. So pay attention to your throat chakra or your solar plex chakra, and I teach them like, okay, I might say, if I know a particular client has an issue with the energy of the day, I'll say, tap on that solar plex this morning to get it balanced because this is going to affect it today. And I just think it's so important. And why I do that daily thing is to learn how to navigate the energy so you're not going off the rails. You know, if something's going on in the cosmos that's affecting your energy, you have the awareness of it. Or maybe like if you see it later in the day, like you'll send me sometimes a message, this was so on point for what it gives you, that kind of, not that you need it, but like that little validation, like I knew it was like, and then you get that sense of like relief, like okay, this is okay. This is just passing through. This is temporary. This is what's going on in the energy because it's not all yours. It's
We're connected to these larger systems.
right. And
Hmm.
we also too pick up people's energy and pick up their, if you're a certain sign and there's something going on, it might not affect you, but it might affect me. And then maybe I'm having a crash out because of it, and then you absorb my energy, right? So it just, I think it helps you be more present and be more aware of what's going on and how to navigate your day, how to navigate your emotions so that you can have a regulated nervous system. The nervous system is the cause for like all of this stuff that's going on. We live in this reality where everything's so fast paced and it throws our energy way off. Like everybody's demanding everything like that, right? Like there's no downtime anymore. There's information flowing at us at high rates of speed, and we weren't designed for that, you know?
How do you think that relates to, we hear a lot about the higher frequencies coming in, like the faster light codes coming in with, the Schumann resonance and like Earth is accelerating. And there's a whole cottage industry of theories about that type of acceleration of frequency. Do you think that's connected in any way? Is it just a mirroring? Is there just a mirroring effect happening in the 3D where, we do have an insane timeline of like
Yes.
technological acceleration right now, which is completely off the rails. Or it's if it wasn't yet, like it is about to the train is gonna totally flop up. Once this AI stuff is by the end of like this year, even by 2026, I don't even know what to say. Like,
No, I agree with you. And I think it is the frequency and the mirroring. I think it's just energy is energy. And when it's like that, it's just, yeah, it's interesting to watch. And I know you posted about the AI stuff. Um, AI could be a wonderful tool, right? And I think that this is interesting to me. And I don't know if many people have the same belief as I do, but everything's your belief and what you believe and what you choose to put your attention on, right? Um, I think anything that's created, so somebody created that, right? And I think that doesn't come from outside of us, that comes from inside of us. And I think AI could be a wonderful tool if used appropriately. And I think it's also another channel for you to receive a message that you need, another channel to help you move to what your goal is or to help you in some way. I choose to look at it as a helpful tool instead of getting bogged down into what you're talking about. And I have seen those things, but I just choose because I don't see any of that right now in my reality, so I'm not going to give it
no,
any
that's cool. I
attention.
get it.
Right.
There's so many nuances, right? I totally get that.
Because, like,
I
even with
think,
an oracle card, right? So
hmm.
some people don't believe in the oracle cards, but it's just a channel. You're just using it a different way. But an
Oh,
oracle card,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
I agree. I mean, no matter what happens objectively, like any individual can still choose like their responses, their understanding. So absolutely. And yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, definitely. It's really complex. It's like multiplying the complexity of everything that we already have, right? And I think that's really what I'm talking about. And and it is a mirroring device. Everything is a mirroring device, but
Oh yeah, The World is a Mirror. Do you know that book? It's a short little book. I don't know who wrote it, but it's a great book. Like a quick read, but The World
yeah,
is a Mirror, and it's so true. Like
absolutely.
even relationships, right? So like somebody triggers you. Well, what is that? What is that going
Hmm.
on within you
Hmm.
that this person is showing you where you need to pay attention to? Maybe you need to shift something, maybe you need to work on your boundaries. There's so many things, right, in relationships, but something's mirroring back to you what you need to
Hmm. Hmm.
look at.
Everything is a mirror, and so I think AI is just interesting to me because it's not like it's not just a book, it's not just, a painting, it's not just these all these other tools, but it's also saying something about who we are as humans. It's a very collective type of new development in a way that even past media aren't in the same way. But that's like, that's where I start to, that's my little rabbit hole. But
Right. No, and
um
and believe me, I go down a lot of rabbit holes and then I'm like, oh, nope, stop. Is this contributing,
yeah.
adding value, contributing to where I'm going? No, I have to stop.
Hmm. Hmm.
But think about the internet. Think
Yeah.
about like the beginning of the internet, how scary it was, right? Like if you think about it, like it was
Oh, I don't remember
exciting.
that part. I don't remember it. Were people
Like
talking about it as scary? Because,
but it was unknown, right? It
yeah.
was like exciting but unknown. And what does this mean? And especially as it started to really progress, right? There was like fear about being safe on there, all these things that
Mm,
could happen. People could take your stuff, right? So, like, I feel like AI is like that version of when the internet started. It's just evolving into, we're evolving. So that's, you know, do I agree with every use of it? Absolutely not, right? Am I aware it's not lost on me that there's potential for what, maybe you're alluding to. But I just choose where I put my attention on, But I do,
totally.
yeah. So,
Hmm.
but I
I
think that
agree.
I think it could be a great tool as well, especially in the creating area, saving time, having a quick question. Like sometimes I'll be like, I have carrots, potatoes, and Brussels sprouts. What can I make?
Right.
And it
Oh, yeah,
tells
we
me
might
that's
all have like some questions that we have no more brain power left for, right?
yeah.
So let's try to bring this back around and before we close this up, because I wanted to also talk about this other modality you use, and you're currently running like this amazing 21-day EFT tapping challenge on your YouTube. So I would encourage everyone to check out your YouTube channel, and I'm going to link all of these, of course. So you're about halfway through this challenge right now. Like, do you want to talk a bit about what is EFT? Like, I know very little about the tapping. How does this actually work? What is happening with the tapping?
So, emotional freedom technique, it's so powerful. And, when I first learned it, I loved it, but then I like let it go. I was like, oh, I'm done with this. And then I came back around and now I do it every day because um, it's so, it's like the best way to describe it is acupuncture without the needles. So you're
Okay.
tapping on these meridian points, these energy points, and what it does is it releases the energy that's no longer needed and it sends a new signal to your brain about the new story, right? It's saying we're releasing this and we're like neutralizing, we're telling a new story. If you use a script, you could also just use it to let something go. So what's interesting is in the early days when I would go to the doctor, my blood pressure would be really high because I was nervous being at the doctor, right? So when I first started doing tapping, I would do like little things to see if I could get it down, how far I could get. And while, you're waiting in there, what, like 15 minutes sometimes or longer, I would tap and my blood pressure would just go down. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then I would have a game with it, right? So
Amazing.
it's just we talked about earlier about letting things go. And early on, I would follow all these things and it would be just let it go, let that leap go. And I would be like, but I don't know how to let it go. How do I let this go? It's ruminating in my mind over and over and over on this loop. I can't let it go. And then I learned tapping, and it just it's such a great practice. And like traditional EFT, you rate something on a scale of 1 to 10. Let's say you're anxious, right? So if you're having a panic attack, let's say, or something, you might be at a 10. And so you rate it, and then you start the process of tapping, and you don't even have to use a script. But like, even though I am having this panic attack right now, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And then you go through the points, say this panic attack. You'll say like the things in the beginning that are the story that's happening now, right? So this is the releasing part. Like, this panic attack, I really don't like the way this feels. I'm coming out of my skin. How do I make this stop? Like, seriously, you just talk through the points of what you're going through, what you're feeling. And then you could do that for a few rounds, and then you tell a new story. So it's
Hmm.
releasing and then reframing, right? So I'm at peace. I feel so much calmer now. You could even say, like, I know just by tapping this switches it around. My body's starting to relax. Like, I'm not buzzing as much. And then you rate it on the scale of 1 to 10 again. And so, like, 0 to 5, you would be good to go. But 5 and again, you run it again until you get that number down or that feeling down. I
So
don't, go ahead.
yeah, it reminded me of like completing the stress response, like completing the stress cycle. So the piece about letting it go is literally, and maybe it does run along these meridians, a certain buildup of stress with a story in a certain meridian family, and then tapping it somehow is like by stimulating the meridian, somehow you are completing the stress response. Is that part of
Right.
what's
Yeah.
happening?
Yes. So, it's, and people make fun of it or whatever. I know sometimes when I'm teaching a client, they're so resistant, right? And but once they do it, it has this release that you could actually feel in your body. It is, um telling the brain a new story. It really is, which is sending this chemical through the body, this release of an endorphin, if you will, of just like calm. It does work like that. And it seems like, how does that even work? But it does. It really is that acupuncture without the needles.
That's
And
so interesting because it reminds me of like experiences from, grad school or something, like being super stressed overnight, trying to like get a paper done or something, and just you're so tired also, but still so wired. I just had to like lay my head on the desk and I'm just like, oh my God, oh my God. And it's kind of like that's activating your little pressure points, I guess.
right. Right, absolutely. And so, like, and you could use it for everything, even if and you need like an before a meeting, let's say, or like I said, I would use it in the doctor's appointment to, now if I do go, I'll do breath work, let's say, at the beginning. Um, but people have used it for their vision, to correct their vision. Like, it's very powerful if you use it often and frequently. And the script doesn't really even matter. You know a lot of times what I like to teach people is to just welcome whatever they're going through, welcome whatever the issue is, think about it, think about all the feelings you have related to it, and it's not going to feel good for a second, right? And then just tap on those points, and it just like lets it go.
Can we do like a really mini bite-sized like tapping activation for our audience right now? Like just something super small that can like, so we can actually do this. I know you mentioned there's
Right.
like 3 questions maybe that you
Oh, the
would relate.
Sedona Method. Yeah,
Sedona Method and just like one super bite size. Like if you want to lead us through that, that would be fun. Like if,
certainly. So, like, I love to combine the Sedona Method with tapping. So you would just welcome everything about something that's pressing on your mind, whatever it is, whether it's a health issue, whether it's relationship, whether it's money, whatever it is, just welcome that whole story and just everything related to it, everything how you feel related to it, just welcome it here into this moment. And then we could start at the karate chop point and just begin tapping at the side of your hand, the karate chop point, and I'll just walk you through. So even though I have this situation, I still deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though this story doesn't seem to want to go anywhere, I still love and honor myself and choose to let it go. Even though I keep repeating the same story, I forgive myself and I choose to let it go. And then go to the eyebrow. I can let this story go. Side of the eye. This story I've been holding on to for so long. Under the eye. It makes me anxious. It disrupts my peace. Under the nose. It's been so hard to just tell a new story. And the chin. But I'm letting it go. And then the collarbone. I choose to let this go. Under the arm. Releasing the story now. On top of the head. I choose the solution. And then we'll tell a new story back at the eyebrow. And think about what you do want and say, I choose this version. And the side of the eye. This is done. Under the eye, I have certainty. Under the nose, all is well. Chin, I am grateful for the magnificent outcome of this. Collarbone, I feel so much lighter now. Under the arm, I'm finally free. On the top of the head, in mind, body, and spirit. And then take a deep breath. And then see how you feel.
and you mentioned there are 3 questions that you use. If you
Oh,
combine this,
right. So this Sedona method is when you welcome something, and I probably could have used the questions and the tapping part of that, but I just wanted to just really just go through the story and letting it go. But another way you could do is welcoming the story, and I believe every person should read the Sedona method. it's so simple. You could do it in your mind. It's a letting go procedure, and you won't have to tap in public. You could just ask these three questions. So you would welcome something, and it's something to use at the spot. Let's say I meet you on the street and we have an exchange that's not pleasant, right? So you get that reaction, right? You get that feeling, and then you welcome all those feelings, and then you say, could you let this go? And it's just a yes or no. And even if you say no, you're still releasing it. And then the next question is, would you let this go? Like, would you if you could, right? And it's just yes or no, and it doesn't matter really the answer, it still releases. And then the final question is when. So of course it would be now. I don't want to hold on to anything, right? So it's such a beautiful, simple tool. And of course, it goes in the book, it goes deeper. So is like, um, is there any kind of control associated with this? Is there any need for approval? Is there any separation or oneness with this story, right? So it's if you want to go deep with it, you could really go deep. But I highly suggest if you have things that you're trying to release and you're having a hard time, you could combine that with the tapping, or you could do them both separately, and you will find the relief you need. And those two tools are so good because one you could use on the go in your mind, those three questions. Oh, this, this person is aggravating me. Okay, could you let this go? Yes. Would you? Yes. When? Now. I always feel it in my stomach when I ask those questions.
Hmm.
Like I feel the physical release, the emotional release, especially
And
in my
it's, yeah,
say,
the letting go is like the attachment to a story, some
right.
type of story, some type of interpretation.
Yeah. So it's super, super powerful. I like to combine everything, right? So like even with the Reiki, I'll combine gentle hypnosis because it just makes the experience better, you
Hmm.
know?
That's amazing. I love it. I like this Sedona method. I didn't know the details about it, but um it reminds me of like the work by Byron Katie, but this almost feels like even more precise, even more concise because there's just the logical pattern, right? Like, can you, would you if you could, when? And then it's just like, boom, like one of those
Boom.
Satori moments because you're like, wow, I could just, of course I want to let it go right now. Like,
Right.
I
And you
love
know
it.
what? I don't know if I have oh, I do have a pen. He always, it's Hale Dwoskin, and he always says like you have this is like the story, right? And this is what the Sedona method does. It's just like,
Yeah.
you know,
Because it pinpoints the story and then it shows you exactly if you're holding on to it or not. It's like, it's kind of brilliant. I love it.
and and just one more little, I'm very passionate about the Sedona method. I gift the book to all my clients, but as you work with it further and you go further into it, like there's a way that you don't even have to ask the questions anymore. Like you,
Amazing.
and it really helps you be more present and aware. He's really, it's super powerful. And there's like the fifth way, he has all different variations of the practice once you get deeper, but the simple like
Cool.
practice that you learn is those three questions. And like, why not? Like, you have nothing to lose but to ask those three questions. What's the worst that could happen? You drop the story.
Hmm.
Like there's, you know, so
Yeah, I love because my understanding, I just feel like all the essence of so much spiritual practice is really like, can you make a change for yourself? Can you literally make your own change? Because that's really what it is to whether you're bringing in your own higher understanding or we talk about it in terms of manifesting or we need to change ourselves. We're working on ourselves. So these are just like so many different ways of like getting back into that present moment, that zero field, and then bringing in a new option, basically.
absolutely. And I just love like all like what you just said. It just came into my mind about like Would you rather live on autopilot, or would you rather like create your life like in the best way possible? Not saying that that's not going to be challenging. It's challenging even to do all this stuff, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, and because the price of this continual creation is that we're feeling everything, because that's what it means to not be on autopilot. It means you're going to
right,
feel it. You're going to be thinking about it. You're going to be experiencing it. And so to
facing
stay in that flow, we have to be able to really like process the experience, integrate the feelings, know how to work with that, modulate our own consciousness rather than dipping back into a story of some sort. This could be, which is really a story is just, it's a way of fixing energy. And then we no longer have to be responsible. We no longer have to carry that energy and our interaction with it. And like, yeah, it's just beautiful the way it all like comes together. But it's important to like work through the metaphors and continually come back to the same place.
right. And like, you know, when you're proactively living your life instead of reactively living your life, right? It's it's the challenges sometimes, depending on where you are in that practice or what you're working on or evolving to, the challenges get a little bit more um
Dramatic
more,
or
yeah, because I feel like the more you progress, the you're held to a higher standard. Do you feel that way? Like, you can't go on autopilot if you wanted to because, you would I feel some
you
people.
will start to catch yourself when you've made
Yeah,
certain commitments and then you're committed to this high level of awareness. And once you're there, you will catch yourself and then you will see your choice. You will see it.
yeah,
Like what I was talking about the other night, where I could just see it. I could see myself making the choice. I was like, well, no, I'm choosing to like stay open. I am not going to fix my energy into however it used to loop. So,
and that's the whole point of being present, is to
mm,
catch those moments,
hmm
because that's where the magic is. And that's the perfect example of being aware.
hmm hmm Yeah,
Being
it's so
aware of that
beautiful.
default coming in, sneaking in, and not going back down into those lower levels of, say,
Sleep,
oh, yeah, I
sleep.
see you. I see you, but I choose
Yeah.
this. Yeah,
hmm
I love that. I love
And
that.
this is why it relates back to energy because there is a very physical register kind of element to this because you do need a certain level of physical energy in your system to hold these higher states, to even reach up to them in the first place, or bring down your light codes. So we often hear, like, oh, you're never going to heal only by, changing your nutrition or something. It's not, it's not sufficient, but it's necessary, right?
Oh,
You need
absolutely.
it, but yeah, it's not the whole way, but you need it to get you like half the way because a lot of this issue is really a physical energy issue because this is where like the energy spectrum, as we know, like it goes the whole way into the subtle, rare dimensions and very dense physical dimensions. So we need a coherency.
Absolutely. And that's why you have to pay attention to all parts of it, right? So making choices. And I'm big on intention, like when you're eating or drinking, so that you're constantly digesting the good stuff and keeping your level, a little bit higher, right? Um, I just read a book and I can't remember the name of it, but it's about manifestation. And it was interesting about this man who's going through all these things, and he meets this older man and he goes to him for like 8 weeks or something. I can't remember the book, but he talks about too the frequency of the water you should drink and the foods you should eat to keep your frequency high, right? Like having water that has like a little pH in it, right? A little extra electrolyte maybe to keep that frequency higher. It's
Hmm
interesting.
And
It
this is where it's also not just about the objectivity or the objective qualities of the foods, why certain foods they can work differently with different people. So because we've also got our internal chemistry, our internal frequencies that we're bringing into that exchange. So, you know, kale may operate with somebody differently depending on what frequency they are also bringing to it. So, as an
right.
example, right?
And I believe it's too, everything's what you believe. What you believe is what's going to be. So, you know, if you believe that you have an aversion to, let's say, kale, then that's what you're going to experience, you know, just like, you know, and that all goes to programming too, because,
Mm,
you know, think about it. If like, let's say you were young and you went to the doctor and you, let's say you were on the anemic side and the doctor said you need red meat because you need a lot of iron, and that's now you're programmed. So up into your adulthood you'll be telling everybody that, well, I have to eat red meat. Like,
hmm
you won't say your doctor told you that, but that's the program you're running, right? So that
hmm
red meat is going to make you feel good because that's the program you've been running,
hmm
that's the belief system that you've installed. So I believe
Absolutely.
that with food too. So, you know, if you enjoy something that might not be the highest elevation of food, but you believe that nothing's going to happen to you, you just eat it because you enjoy it, that's going to be your experience, right?
hmm hmm
So I don't buy into a lot of things that people preach about certain foods and certain things because it's crazy right now, right? You can't
hmm
eat, drink, nothing. You can't do
Yeah,
anything.
so I used to be really into this, right? There was like an 8 year period where I just went through the whole everything. And the way I see it now is that it's about the level of scale of analysis that we're bringing to it. So because it's food, right? We think, oh, it's physical. Of course, we're gonna stay on this biochemical level and everything, but everything has this full energetic spectrum. So it really does involve, the other energies that are interplaying into this exchange because it is an energetic exchange when
Oh,
we're eating, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So we're not wrong to be focusing on it, but it's just I feel like we need the right scale of analysis because it's not just about like connecting all the atomic dots and doing a little calculation and.
Absolutely. I just think I like it's the balance of everything, right? It's the
hmm
balance of energy, it's the balance of your belief system, it's the balance of physically how it makes you feel, right? So I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So this has been really great. We've like touched on a lot of different areas, oh, not all of the areas of your work, of course, like so much. You were talking to me about like the Kabbalah and, human design. We could have gone into that too. So maybe for a future conversation, but I want to keep it somewhat, short. I don't know. I could go on, but is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with? I was going to ask you about book recommendations, but you've already given a couple. We've been through a few authors.
Yeah.
Um, but definitely like let's let everybody know like how to get in touch with you if they want to work with you and maybe what you're working on next. Like what's up next for you?
What's up next for me? I have always have like 12 things going on at the same time. I do have my aligned energy goddess membership. I do like I was having private clients come to me. They wanted to come more regularly. They wanted like a system where they could come on a more regular basis to keep them accountable. So I have that membership up. Everything, yeah, I'm on Instagram and YouTube, Awaken Divine Truth. And I have a link tree where everybody could see what I offer. I offer programs, the memberships, and what I'm working on next is kind of more in depth with uh like a full system. Like I have an energy alchemy routine and I have a nervous system expansion activation, but I'm working on like a bigger thing. In the membership, there's daily embodiment practices. I have hypnosises in there. I have, a whole health area, money area, mapping out I do everything.
It's a
Reiki.
library.
tappings, there's everything in there. So I'm working on creating like a whole awakened divine truth journey from like beginning to I have inner child healing too. So kind of like more expansive to tie everything in together instead of a separate things. Kind of like what's in the membership, but in like a package deal.
Amazing.
Is that
Amazing.
that's what's next, and just keep learning to keep bringing different tools to people and you know and I would say to anybody who's watching, whether you're seasoned, whether you're starting out, to just follow the breadcrumbs.
Definitely
those,
agree.
those little nudges that are so subtle and you can't explain why you're receiving them, those are the ones to follow. Anything that feels anxious, no, unless you feel like a joy, inspiration feeling, a good feeling. But like, oh, I have to do this. If I don't do this now, I'm going to lose it. That's not intuition, that's trying to control. But those little nudges, and after a while, you don't even have to follow those anymore. That things just like in my thing, once I agreed to take that book and do those steps, everything just came to me
Amazing.
in the most
Yeah.
magical way. So that's what I would leave everybody with. Follow, and that'll expand your intuition as well.
I mean, that's how our conversation happened. I just followed, it wasn't even like a very loud, it wasn't like a loud signal or like feeling like I didn't even think about it very much, right? It was just this quiet little like, oh, I'm gonna reach out to Lisa because and surprise, surprise. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's
It
so
was
funny.
definitely, yeah, we definitely felt like it was like this other it was like a connection that was happening, like entanglement.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was just so synchro. I was like floored because I was like thinking about like, oh, it would be nice to do a podcast or to collaborate, right? Which is a little out of my comfort usually, right? So I was like, yeah, I'll open up to that. And then I was doing that Joe Dispenza thing, and then you reached out, and I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I remember being on
amazing.
like whatever job I was on my other business and saying to the room, like, oh, I have to tell you what just happened, that they're, in the legal field. So they just looked at me
Oh, I
what?
love it. I love it.
But thank you
Okay,
so much.
yeah, thank you for making the time for this. And I will link to everything below. Definitely check out Lisa's Instagram, your YouTube. And yeah, we will definitely keep talking. So.
It's great to be here. Thank you.